Let's get started. Afternoon, everybody. It's Alexander Phillips here with Glenn Wooten. We have a special guest today. Kind of going off of just the videos we've been doing. We're excited about this interview today. I'll let Glenn introduce him because they have some great history together. Glenn?
I am very glad to welcome this next guest that we have here today. This is a good friend of mine, and we've been friends for 20 plus years, and he's always been there. No matter when I ask if he can make it, he's there, and it's just a joy to have that relationship from such a fellow such as this. So this is Ken Harvey. Ken Harvey, former NFL player, linebacker, terror on the field,
Beast.
a big beast, and he was in the first round. If I remember, I heard a story. Michael Irvin was picked just before you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's, look, so another great Michael Irvin was picked just before Ken Harvey. But Ken, I'm gonna let Ken go into his story a little bit because it's a very interesting story, and I haven't heard many of these type of stories in the NFL from somebody who really had to work his way up and just developed such a great heart after all his trials and tribulations. So Ken, tell us about yourself.
Right. Start off with, I guess I'm one of those brothers that claimed the fame that I was next to somebody. I was like, hey man, Mike Irvin was right before me. And everybody's like, oh, I was in the room with so and so. Look, I mean, a lot of guys have stories in the NFL, and it's in the journey to get there, because you start looking at the percentage of people that actually make it to the NFL and make it for a considerable amount of time. It's like 0.08, 008, something like that actually make it to the NFL, and that's a long journey for a small spot. Right? And so a lot of it's overcoming, and you're trained to overcome. And you've worked all your life to try to get that one moment. For me, I was a dropout in high school. I said that, and had to go back to school. Had to learn a little bit about life, humble myself some, and then from that go to a junior college. And from the junior college to the California, Berkeley, and then getting drafted in the NFL, which is a story, and I wrote a book about it, and that's it. I mean, that's a part of my life. But like all things, that's a part of your life.
Right.
Life moves on, and there's some things that you can take from that and hopefully get better and use it to help people, which I have. I have tried to, at least with my platform in the NFL. But as you said, me helping people is nothing more than my mom and dad did all their lives, right? And so you kind of model what you've seen from your parents. I just had a bigger platform. So that's it.
Okay, perfect. So, going into the NFL, was that your playing football? Was that that's what I wanted to do?
No. So, like, my whole thing was this is a part story. So, my thing when I dropped out of school. And the reason I dropped out was more just, I was just a real quiet, insecure, shy guy, and just missing school became a habit, hobby, right? But I was also playing football, and I was also starting to get a little bit stronger, and then you get the pressure of you got to do well in school, or you got to, do well on the field, and if you're not doing well in school, are you going to take easy classes? But myself, in my own mind, I'm not dumb. So I don't want to take easy classes, but your grades don't show it, so you're going to get straight L's and do whatever. So for me, I had to drop out of school. During that time, people say you get to know God.
Yeah.
I was on my knees praying. I tried to end my life once, because you don't feel like you have any worth, any value in the world. And for me at that time, I felt like God was like, you have a purpose and a destiny. And sometimes that's all you need to hear is someone saying you have a purpose and a destiny. And whether that's you hearing it from God or from some kid or some person saying you are worth something, it can make the biggest difference in the world. And once I heard that, it was kind of like, okay, God, I know you got my back. What's my plan? And the plan was like, you got to go back to school. Then once you go to school, I couldn't play my senior high school football. So it was then, speak it into existence. I was telling everybody I'm going to college. And it was more, I just wanted to go to college to prove that I wasn't dumb. Here I'm 6'2", 225 pounds, in the weight room all the time, benching around 400, I guess.
I can relate to that.
And yeah, right?
Yeah, I can relate.
And trying to figure out how am I going to go to college, knowing my family's been to college. And so for me, the only way was to go was to play football. But no one wanted me because I didn't play much senior high school football.
Right.
And so, how God works, met a guy in a gym who told me about a junior college in California, and me and another guy saved up money. They don't get scholarships, and they don't give you under the counter stuff. Saved up money. First time on a plane. First time outside of Texas. Went to California, and then started playing at this junior college, and from there did well enough to play. Met my wife, fiance there, which is probably the best thing that ever happened to me. And then made it to the NFL.
That story. I'm familiar with that story because of your book, it's Stepping Stones, and then you wrote and you do talk about that in the book.
And I did write it.
Yes, he's also an author.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I see in this book, and I think a lot of people can relate to, and you can expound on it, is each step of your way, there was somebody that was positive, that influenced you. You know, just like you say, your fiance, now your wife, she was a great influence, and you pay homage to that in the book.
Yeah.
But you know, besides I know your dad and everything, who else was your role model? Who else helped you get through those times? Because we all go through those times.
Right.
I mean, then we like in perspective, we're like, hey.
Believe me, I go through those times now.
Right.
Sometimes it's just having a buddy that you can call that has no agenda and you just listen to.
Right.
And say, all right, man, hey, I'm here for you. Maybe give you some advice, but you don't have to take it. Or you just may call and laugh. And there's a buddy in there that the name of the book is from college, a guy named Don Nobles. And we did our first interview together, and he had his stuff all laid out. He was all prepared, professional, and I just, off the cuff, and I was like, all right, life is a stepping stone, and the game is going to be like a stepping stone, and you got to overcome like a stepping stone. Those are my words. He laughed at it, I laughed at it. It's our running joke for like 30 plus years.
Okay.
But he's the guy that I could call just and talk to, or he calls and we talk, and we just laugh, and that's it. Before, when I got drafted to the Cardinals, it was a guy named Anthony Bell, and then from the Redskins at the time, it was the guy Terry Crews. So there was always someone, and then those are just people with names.
Terry Crews.
The Terry Crews.
Terry Crews.
And as good of a person as he presents himself on TV, that's how he really is. He's a good guy. You catch anybody at any moment, in any way, and you may say, he ain't that good. But, we all got things, and it's all perspective. But for me, it was there's people, but then there's also people that, like we talked about, that me and my wife, when we're having this mega fight, and we're on the beach somewhere, and they walk up to us and they said, you know what, you guys, I see you guys have a lot of destiny in store for you guys. You guys are a beautiful couple. Don't let the enemy take you out. And then you never see them again. Change your life.
Right.
I think a lot of times we get messages, but it's easy to just walk past it because you're focused on something else. And I'm having to learn. Even now, I'm having to relearn those messages that are in your life that you can't just walk past, and maybe have to stop and say, okay, either, I'm going to stop and listen, or which direction am I supposed to go, or whatever. And that's what we're trying to do.
So once the journey ended with the NFL, what was that thought process when you were coming towards, you said, okay, retirement's coming along, what is my next step?
It wasn't that. Because like a lot of guys, and unfortunately I was probably one of them, is that I didn't necessarily plan post.
Okay.
It was more injuries that caused the end of my career, and I had a lot of other issues that I was dealing with, and so it never really ends the way you want it to end. And the one thing I will say to anyone who's listening is always keep setting your goals and your dreams at another, just like a stepping stone. If you achieve one, set another. For me, my goal was to go to college to show everybody it wasn't done. Football wasn't on the it wasn't there. It was just, I want to go to college to show everybody I wasn't done. The gravy was the 11 years in the NFL, but I didn't have a vision necessarily beyond that.
Gotcha.
And so if you don't have a vision beyond that, and then my own mental, psychological barriers was that when I had dropped out of school, I was like, I will never quit again. And when I retired, it felt like I quit. It was an injury, you know, you can rationalize it, but for me, in my mind, I quit again. And so you know, you're walking depression, right? You're walking around, you're smiling. Every time someone's like, oh man, you look like you still play. Oh, you're a great player. While they were doing it as a show of respect, it was, you know, stabs for me. Because you're hearing it every time, like, it's like, whoa, you're a great player, but I'm hearing, oh, you quit. You're a great, y'all, you look like you still play. Oh, you quit too soon. You gave up again. And so sometimes we put these mental blocks on ourselves, and that's what I did. And I just wandered around. I did a little bit of everything. I did work with a guy at one time, and we did some stuff with space tourism.
Okay.
Which is kind of unique because, you know, I'm a dreamer, he was a dreamer, but it's a reality and people are doing it more so now, that space is a new frontier. It's like the first person to say, I'm going to cross the Atlantic in the Mayflower or whatever, people already looked at me crazy.
Right.
But it had to start somewhere.
Yep.
Someone had to have that dream.
Right.
And so we did some things with space tourism and the whole space industry. We just didn't have the billions of dollars.
Gotcha.
But it was kind of cool, and that was an adventure. And writing the books was a big adventure, and still is to a point, because that's my way of trying to use the gifts that God's given me. I'm not the best writer. Editors, you know, thank God for editors, or I guess now AI. But if you can, even if you have a thought or idea, just put it down. At least for me, it's put it down. And writing this book, I had to face a lot of demons. That, like I said, some of those demons, you have to face them. And if anybody's dealing with something, sometimes you just write out that story. It doesn't have to be perfect. But when you have to start looking in the mirror, it teach you a lot about yourself.
Right.
Now, you wrote a couple of children's books.
A lot of children's books,
Yeah, and you wrote this book, and you're writing other things. Where did that passion come from to start writing like this? And I mean, and all these stories are now being birthed out of you.
Yeah.
And they're all different.
Well, I'll give you two versions. I tend to talk a lot, so forgive me.
That's okay.
But so the first version was, the reason I started writing books was a long time ago, and I've told the story many times. My two boys, one of them came home and he's talking about a contest on TV, and this is about 25 years ago, right? Contest on TV, and if you win, you get to be one of the characters. But he was almost afraid, because he's like, there are no brown characters, and he had never really seen brown characters on TV. And it hit me. It's like, wow, our kids, brown, whatever color, don't see themselves. And it's not an attack on anybody else. It's just they don't see themselves doing what every other kid does. Yet they do it, but it's not, they don't see themselves. And I'm like, you know, when I first started trying to write the book, you know, I would go to people and, oh, you should have, you know, these kids coming from Africa and they do this and they should do that. And I'm like, no, I just want a book where any other kid can read it and say that's me, but my kids know it's them. So I did a, you know, simple kids book. That's when me and Terry first worked on the book together, our kids book. And then after that, it was more of a, let's do a couple of kids books, and then it's kind of like a challenge. A friend of mine challenged me about a novel, so I did a thriller suspense novel. I've always had a kind of creative mind. So then I wrote two thriller suspense novels. The second one I did it in the voice of a woman, because I wanted to see if I could do it. You know, like, why did I do it? But I just wanted to see if I could do it. But I also wanted to try and have a message with it. And now it's just, I'm trying to write, especially with the kids' books, something that's going to plant a seed. Because I know for me, you know, maybe reading a book, I was a child of Star Trek and TV and all that stuff. And sometimes those little seeds stick with you, both positive and negative. The negative was when I dropped out of school, and your coach told you you'll be a loser, and you feel like you're quitting, and you're like, I'll never quit again. That could be a good seed to drive you, but it could be a negative seed if you don't prune that flower or whatever it is, and it becomes a weed, and it brings you down, because now it's a burden on you, as opposed to, well, you know, you had a great career, move on. It was a good thing. But if you can plant a good seed and people can nurture that good seed, you know, that's my thing. So the children's book, I got a new one that I'm excited about coming out, and you know, I think it'll be fun. It's going to be an interesting, cool little topic, but I think it's so needed, and that this world is just getting so separated. And we don't even talk to each other, and you see so much negativity, And if I can do something that's still positive, then that's what I do.
Okay. Perfect. So I wanted to dabble into something that we had spoken before we started this interview, your faith, and what that journey has been like for you. Finding God and taking that path. It's myself as an entrepreneur. I was raised in the church and all that other stuff. But the journey isn't easy.
Yeah.
Because there are tests that He will throw to you. One, to see how bad you want it, and two, to see how faithful you'll be.
Yeah.
But I wanted to get your perspective on your journey.
Yeah.
And what that's been like.
So I would say, like, God will help you do whatever He's trying to teach you, because it's like a parent. He wants He has your best interest at heart.
Mm-hmm.
But you may have to deal with the same issue over and over again until you understand what He's trying to teach you. And I've lived that in my life. The whole issue of dropping out of school. I've had to relive that in ways. Not that I dropped out of school, but some of the same base issues that God's like, instead of the reason you dropped out of school was insecurity, being afraid, blah blah blah. The reason post that you're not doing all the things that I've laid out for you is because of insecurity, being afraid. So now the focus is on, God, what have you been trying to teach me? Quit being insecure, quit being afraid. My word is greater than man, you know, and you got to follow. If you're gonna be afraid of anybody, be afraid of me. Don't worry about man. So I'm learn those lessons. Don't be afraid to talk to CEO Fortune 500. Don't be afraid to throw out ideas as an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
There's some ideas and some things that I'm doing now that it's like, who knows? I don't know. Right? I tried to write a song for the Commanders, and I can't even clap on beat. But if God gave it to you,
right,
what are you going to do with it?
Right.
Are you going to sit and sit with it, or are you going to do something with it? For the longest, after I stopped playing football, when we talk about writing books, I got tons of stories, tons of movies, and tons of books that have just been sitting there. And so it's not even writing anymore. It's going back and using the gift that God has given you and just trusting God that He can rebirth it. And that's one of the reasons I wrote that one, was because it was just sitting there for years. And I was afraid to write it, didn't know how to write it, didn't trust God to do, that He was going to put the stuff in place, and finally it came out.
So we go back, Ken and I go back 20 plus years, met him, and it was actually at church.
Okay.
We met, and I guess there's been that connection for us since then. But before I started in the Gap, just recently, back in those days, I was still doing volunteerisms and things like that. And Ken was one of those guys I can call and say, hey, because of his platform,
right?
Because of his platform, I got something going on. He used to say, if I can do it, just hit me up. And He's always been that way from that time to this time. So in those challenges of trying to, get the message out, but then having a person such as Ken, who's well known, well respected, because of playing football, but also being on TV as an announcer and stuff like that, it brings such light. But Ken, I've seen you over the years. You gave books away to schools. You went to school. You read stories. You got involved with the foundations. Tell us a little bit about your impact on the community.
So sometimes, like, my wife has to remind me, because you can help and do it, and it's from your heart, but you can't help everybody, and you can't please everybody, and that's the way I was. I know I was given a lot, and I was trying to please everybody, and that goes back to God. It's like, you're not God for people. You can't please everybody, so you have to do what I give you, or do what's in your hands, but you're not going to be able to do it to everybody.
Right.
And you got to learn how to say no. So, for me, for the longest, I would help people because I just know me as a kid, there were so many people like you talked about that along the way helped me. There were so many voices, and so many people said, hey, don't give up, son, or hey, you can do this, or whatever, that I wanted to be that person to somebody else. And definitely with kids, sometimes it's good because it brings you back and put in perspective. When you see somebody and they have innocence and belief in front of them, and you realize, wow, the things that I've been dealing with, or the issues I've been dealing with, it's not really that bad. It's, you got to maybe look at it from a different perspective. But with people in general, there's just a lot of people, even now, that need help, especially now. We're so polarized in so many ways. As much as we have technology, it's a great tool, but it's also a separating tool. You don't talk to people as much. You don't shake hands. So I try to help people. But now I'm looking at what can I do with the gifts I've had. So I'll go back to this moment. About 3-4 years ago, I had down on my knees praying again, repeating the same situation I was when I dropped out of school, and started reading Exodus. And there's a part in there, Exodus, my tattoo, Exodus 4:2, and God's talking to Moses, and he's saying, "What's in your hand?" And to me, God was saying, "What are the gifts that I've given you that are in your hands? Right. You're trying to look at everything else. I've already given you all that you need." And he told Moses, take the staff. And Moses said the staff. And the staff is the 10 sheep. But God's like, if you trust me, I'll help you free millions of people. I'll help you part the Red Seas. But he told the first thing is, throw it on the ground. It became a snake. Moses ran away. And I looked at that and said, all my gifts, all the things that God has given me, I've been running away from. He said, go back and pick it up. Pick it up by the tail. And so my writing, my dreaming of making a movie, of all the things that I ever dreamed about, God's like, go back and pick it up by the tail. And there's a part in there that I've skipped over a lot that I need to start looking back at. It was right after he told Moses to pick up the snake or the staff. He had told Moses, he said, take your hand and put it in your vest. And he did, and it came out leprous. And then he's like, put it back in. And it came back fresh again. And he's like, to me, it was like God saying, your hand is the hand that controls the staff, that controls the world, but my hand is the hand that controls your hand, that controls the staff, that controls the world. Don't forget that part of it. And that's the part that, I got to bring back in my memory, is that no matter what I want to do, as great as my ideas I think are, God is the hand that controls the hand, that controls the staff. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. And I can relate to that because, sometimes we get caught up in the worldly things, you know what I mean? And then our brain starts thinking too much.
Yeah.
We start entirely thinking to the what ifs and all this other stuff.
What ifs, or you don't trust God in it, that his promise is true. You start thinking, I got to do it myself.
Right.
And you start, and so instead of seeing what he's thrown out in front of you, those little signs and maneuvers or whatever, you don't see them because you're thinking, well, I got to forge the path myself. And he's like, no, you don't have to knock down the forest and do all that stuff. I already got a path for you. I already got your promised land there for you. You just got to walk into it.
Right.
You got to fight, but you got to walk. You don't walk into it.
Yeah.
One thing I want to touch on is you do public speaking.
I do.
Talk about that.
Yeah, as I stutter. No, I mean, I just, so like I said, there's organizations, companies, people who need to hear it. Speakers are nothing but people who can take knowledge, traditions. They're good storytellers, and they can put it in a package that the masses can identify with, or whoever your group is can identify. And so for me, a lot of people, love sports, take that, put it in a package. I actually coached this congressional football game. We got all these Congress members on both parties playing flag football against Capitol Hill Police to raise money for charity. But here it is, an opportunity to talk to them about, it's about unity. You'll never win a Super Bowl game with just your offense, just your defense, or just your special team. You may fight against each other in practice, but ultimately you got to learn to work together to win. And if we want to make this country great, it can't be Democrats, it can't be Republicans, it can't be separated. Sooner or later, you guys got to come together. When you speak to groups, whether it be adults or kids, it's identifying with them, not preaching to them necessarily unless it calls for that. And some people just want to say, oh, you know what, that hit me. I got that. You know what you said seems so real to me, because that's what I'm dealing with every day. And that could be, in a corporations of a bunch of leaders, whether you're Fortune 500 or not, the same issues could be dealt with, but just in a different format. There's loneliness. You could be the loneliest person making millions of dollars, but you have no one to talk to about your problems, because everyone wants something from you.
Yeah.
And you're scared to admit that I'm weak, because everyone's depending on you. Or you can have no money and you're embarrassed to talk to someone, and people are depending on you. Same issues, different brackets, right?
Right.
Same issue. You just got to read the story so that people can hear it, and understand it.
Right. So with your giving and everything that you're doing, I mean, where do you see, like, what's that next step with the books and?
Great question. It's always cool when someone says "great question." Right? You know, instead of be like, "That's the stupidest question I've ever heard." You know, what the heck?
So the question was it a good
It
question?
was a great question. It was a great question.
I guess it's a good
And it wasn't even planned. It was a great question. I was hoping you said that. So here's the deal. One of the things that, like, going back and God said, "What's in your hands?" There's several things that is sitting on my computer. I want to make this into a documentary type movie. I've written like 3 or 4, like 4 or 5 scripts, movie scripts that I want to make into a movie. There's a new sports game that I've created that I created. I have a buddy. We kind of worked a little bit together, but mostly me. And I want to see it come to fruition because sports is my background. It's using the gift that I have, but it's also how can you solve a problem? The problem right now is that you have girls want to play boys sports, boys want to play girls sports. You don't know who, you know, if you're a guy or a girl, whatever. And if you can create a sport that it doesn't matter, and that's kind of how the space stuff. It doesn't matter how much you weigh, and space is zero gravity.
Right.
So on Earth, if you can create a game where it doesn't matter if you're male, female, it doesn't matter if you're big, small, all that doesn't matter, then it's cool. So I'm trying to bring that into fruition. I have a podcast that we're doing like a game show.
Okay.
And I think it's going to be kind of cool. It's, I had to change the name, but it's going to be Commander's Justice. You're going to know Commander's Justice. So it's like Judge Judy, but with a sports game show type of thing.
Okay.
And then writing the books, I have another kids book that I'm excited about, more so excited about it because it's a way to not force, but to provide communication. I always try to see, like, what's the bridge? Like, for me, that the sports game that I was talking about, it's going to be a bridge. If it goes the way I want it to go, it'll be a bridge between physical playing the game and then virtually playing the game. So, you know, you can play the game here on the field, but then you can also walk into it and play the same kind of game on the virtual side. And you can train in both worlds, in the virtual world and the physical world. How can I do that with a book? How can I show something that's going to get young people back talking to people?
Right.
And so the book is simple. It's almost a picture book. It's a kid's book, but I think the format and the way I'm doing it is going to be exciting. And so I'm really excited about that, just to see where it goes, because it's so simple. And then, like I said, writing the songs, I can't write it down. I don't know. I got one song that I want to have because I had a dream, and someone was singing this in the song. And so I got to get it. No matter what happens, I'm gonna get that finished. But let's see what happens.
Good stuff. So to tie this all up, I definitely appreciate you coming by. And again, there's so much more that you could possibly talk about because everything that you're doing. I have actually have had a front row in seeing a lot of these things and knowing what's coming on, and I'm excited for what you're going to see coming from Ken Harvey. But I just appreciate you coming in, and what In the Gap is doing, and getting in the community, making this impact, and bridging all these resources together so people can have something. It's very appreciative to have somebody such as yourself who is in the community, who is also in your way making an impact. What do you say to others who want to help, but are just in that mode, like you were saying, you know you had these gifts, but you had to move on.
So I think first thing is step of faith. I don't know where to go. I don't know who to talk to. I'm embarrassed that I don't have any money. You don't know, and sometimes you got to take a step of faith and maybe pick up the phone and call somebody. You can tell them exactly that. They say, "Oh, I can direct you to here." Sometimes you just don't know, but you got to do something. That's one of the things that was my problem when I was a child, and some of the things I deal with now is I used to sit and watch TV all the time. I was smart because I knew everything on TV. So you go to your classroom, you know everything, but unless you have to apply it, unless you have to walk, unless you have to do the math problem, it means nothing. That's the same thing in life, is that you got to apply it. You got to take a step. You got to do something. So reaching out to you guys, I mean, what you guys are doing, it's commendable, because you could sit at home talking about, I have this great idea. I want to do this. I want to do this show, and I want to talk to people about it. But you never do anything with it, and you die. You know, on your tombstone, it just says your date of birth, the line, and your death. But if you're doing this, and this may reach somebody that needs it, that says, you know what, I'm gonna get up and do something.
Right.
Then you've done your job.
Right.
So commendable to you. I'm just trying to live my life. I'm not. My football days are long gone. Just trying to do my life and hopefully do it well enough that at the end, God said, congratulations, good, faithful servant. You've done a good job.
Yeah. I do have one additional question, and it's something that we didn't ask last week, but you mentioned you have kids.
Two.
How has this impacted them? Because one of the big things, I mean, we all have kids, and it's that generational wealth. And sometimes it's not about money, it's about that seed of planting, of giving, helping, and all that other stuff. How do you feel that what your journey has that impacted them in that same way?
Good question.
Great question.
He said great.
Press down, flow on. So it's kind of like always been my biggest worry. Like, am I doing enough that my kids could at the end say, be proud to say that's my dad?
Yeah.
Or the legacy that long after you're gone, you've left the legacy. They both got great educations, and they're both smart kids, and they're both well-mannered kids. That we have no doubt. I think my proudest moment would be when they have kids, and if they take their book that I wrote for them and they give it to their kids.
Gotcha.
That to me would be like my legacy. I did something, and not just they give it to them because I'm standing over and looking at them like, you better get this book.
Yeah.
They do it because they want to.
Yeah.
That to me would be, I mean, it's a simple thing, but something like that. You hear stories of people, this was the letter my great-great-grandmother wrote, and they've been holding on to it like, this is the most precious thing in the world.
Yeah.
Because it is.
Yeah.
And you may not have money, silver and gold, you may not have the money, you may not have whatever. I had the money with football, and I don't now. I gave a lot away, I've made mistakes. But if I could leave a legacy where my kids are good people, take care of their friends, take care of their family, and love their kids as much as I love them, then hopefully I've done something right, and that they're an asset to society as opposed to being a detriment.
Right.
And it's never too late. I mean,
Yeah.
never too late. Your kid could have been off the wall for 60 years, and all of a sudden, something that you said, some of those nights that you've been praying for them, and it hits them at 60 years old, and they say, you know what? Now I got it.
Yeah.
But it's because you kept at it and didn't give up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, thank you, Ken Harvey.
Thank you so much.
Again,
Thank you for the great questions. You guys are awesome.
Again, here's Ken's book, Stepping Stones. You can get this online with Ken Harvey. And he also has several children's books. Great stuff. I know you'll enjoy this. This book really, it's a read not only once but twice or three times. There's some lessons in here of life. I highly recommend it.
Short book too, right?
Short, easy to read.
Dude, I got tired of writing, so it got shorter and shorter. Man. It was like,
But it's easy to read and a good read.
Where can they get your books?
yeah, it's on Amazon.
Okay.
So this is on Amazon, and most of my books are on Amazon. There are other Ken Harveys, but you'll see, the kids book Ken Harvey.
Okay.
And then this one also. Hopefully, like I said, the movie is my next big venture in the sports game. That to me is more. It's been just sitting there, so I wanna make it happen.
Excellent.
And you can get in touch with Ken Harvey through, we have an email address for In the Gap, and just email,
Yep.
and we'll get in touch with Ken Harvey, okay? And that'll be put on
on LinkedIn, and it'll be attached on social media platforms.
Right,
We
you'll
have
see it on the
YouTube.
YouTube channel. The information will be right there. Ken, again,
Thank you so much.
Yep,
Appreciate
thank
you.
you.
Appreciate it, my man.
Thank
you
you.
so much.
All right.
I'm trying to look cool on my chair. Hold on a second.
You
There
like
you
that?
go.
Yeah,
get the
but,
pose.
but I got,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
got no flexibility. So it don't work.
So now you got to strike a pose. You got to put this.
Well, they don't want
But-
that.
but-
They don't want
but-
that.
I know they want that, but you know
But,
what you're
but what we have to do, and I told you I was going to do this at the beginning, I want to address the elephant in the room.
Okay, sir.
And I'm sure this was going to come up, you know, when people see
Yeah.
the video. Yes, I do train Ken Harvey.
Yeah.
Okay, so let it be known. I didn't want to talk about it, but yes, I do train him. And as you can tell, I mean, my shirt is kind of baggy, but, you know, let it be known.
Yeah, no, you know, yeah, he's a great trainer. Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. All right, guys, you guys have a great one.